I now call upon Senator LaBoucane-Benson.
Thank you, Speaker. Today, we collectively remember and mourn the death of 215 Indigenous children discovered in a mass grave outside a residential school in Kamloops, British Columbia. Colleagues, often in ceremonies, elders will remind us that the children are not our possessions, but rather precious gifts from the Creator. Our sacred duty is to love and care for them, protect them from harm, and to support them through the stages of their lives. The truth is that 150,000 Indigenous children were taken away from their families for over a century and forced to live at residential schools operated by churches and enabled by the Indian Act. This deprived not only children of the loving embrace of their families, their language, and their identity, it also deprived adults the opportunity to fulfill their most sacred duty, to raise their children. Today, we acknowledge the pain and re-traumatization that the discovery of this mass grave caused the Kamloops people and other First Nation, Métis, and Inuit peoples across this country. We also acknowledge that this is likely one of many mass burial sites that will be discovered in the future. We acknowledge that the children who died were likely terrified. If they were sick, they were probably suffering and alone. They passed from this earth without the comfort of their parents, grandparents, aunts, and uncles. Senators, we must also acknowledge the children who survived. Many of us have heard the devastating recollection of survivors who were made to dig graves for their classmates, brothers, sisters, and cousins forced to grieve the loss of their family alone. The whispers of school violence, death, and despair passed on through the generations. We acknowledge that families were not allowed the dignity of notification, left to wonder what happened to their children who didn't return home. They were not allowed the peace of mind required to grieve and accept the loss of their child. The intergenerational grief and loss of Indigenous families remains one of the heaviest burdens of historic trauma. June 1st is the beginning of National Indigenous History Month. It should be a time to celebrate culture, language, resilience, and resistance. Instead, we find ourselves reaching out to friends and family to check in on them, hoping their grief and despair does not swallow them whole. The discovery of what remains of the children's earthly bodies is a sharp reminder to never forget the children who suffered and those who died at residential schools, to be more mindful of how this trauma manifests in communities, and to support community-based, culturally grounded historic trauma healing initiatives, to support the ceremonies that help us to move through this grief, loss, and despair. It is a reminder that we all have a responsibility in the healing and reconciliation of our collective pain. Hi.